July 12, 1979. Brooklyn, New York. A back patio behind a small Italian restaurant on Knickerbocker Avenue. Carmine Galante was sitting outside eating lunch, cigar in his mouth, plate of fish and salad in front of him. The boss of the Bonanno crime family, one of the most feared men in the American Mafia, eating in the open like a man who had nothing to worry about. 3 gunmen walked through the restaurant and onto the patio. They opened fire immediately. Galante was hit multiple times. He died in his chair. When the police arrived, the cigar was still in his mouth. That image, a dead boss slumped in a patio chair with a cigar clenched between his teeth, became one of the most iconic crime scene photographs in American history. But the photograph doesn't tell you why it happened, so it doesn't tell you how a man who had spent his entire life in the most dangerous organization in the country ended up dying in the middle of a lunch he thought was safe. It doesn't tell you who sent those gunmen, or why the men sitting at his own table. Let them walk right in. Carmine Galante didn't die because he was dangerous. Every boss is dangerous. He died because he treated the system like it worked for him, and never understood that he was supposed to work for it. The answer to how he ended up on that patio starts 12 years before the first shot was fired. Carmine Galante was never the kind of man who waited for things to be given to him. He grew up in East Harlem. By the time he was a teenager, he had already been arrested multiple times. Assault, robbery. By his 20s, he was doing work for the Bonanno family, the kind of work that doesn't get discussed in detail, the kind that earns you a reputation before anyone learns your name. He was violent in a way that even other violent men noticed, cold about it, efficient. By the 1950s, Galante had risen through the Bonanno family's ranks. He was trusted enough to be sent to Montreal to oversee the family's heroin pipeline running between Canada and the United States. That operation made millions, and it taught Galante something he never forgot. Drug money was bigger than anything else the families were earning, bigger than gambling, bigger than unions, bigger than construction, and the man who controlled it didn't need permission from anyone. Then he went to prison. 1962. Convicted on federal narcotics charges. He spent 12 years inside. When he came out in 1974, New York had changed. The families had shifted. Power had moved. Alliances had formed without him. But Carmine Galante walked back into the Bonanno family like none of that mattered. Like the world had been waiting for him to return. He didn't come back looking to find his place in the new order. He came back looking to replace it. And within a few years, he had made himself boss. Not through politics, not through patience, through force. And the way he ran the family once he had it was something New York's other bosses had never seen before. Every boss in New York operated within the same system. The commission existed for a reason. It settled disputes between families. It approved major decisions. It maintained the balance that kept 5 separate criminal organizations from destroying each other. Every boss understood that. Every boss respected it, except Carmine Galante. He didn't consult the commission, didn't ask for approval, didn't share territory, didn't cut other families into his operations. He ran the Bonanno family like it was the only family that mattered. And the center of everything he built was heroin. Galante had learned in Montreal what drug money could do. And when he came back to New York, he expanded that operation aggressively. He brought in Sicilian heroin traffickers, men known as Zips, and gave them positions of power inside the Bonanno family. Not because they had earned their place through the traditional structure, because they were loyal to him personally. They answered to Galante, not to the family's captains, not to the commission, to him. He was building something that didn't need the rest of the system to function. His own supply lines, his own enforcers, his own money, independent of every other family in New York. And he didn't hide it. He moved openly, spoke openly, made it clear through every action that he considered himself above the rules that governed everyone else. The other bosses watched. They watched him cut them out of the most profitable racket in the country. They watched him import his own soldiers from Sicily. They watched him ignore every protocol the commission had established. And the question stopped being whether Carmine Galante was a problem. The question became how long they were willing to let the problem grow. The thing about the commission is that it was designed for exactly this situation. Not to protect bosses, to protect the structure. When one man threatens the balance, when one man accumulates enough power to operate outside the system has a mechanism for that. And by 1979, that mechanism was already in motion. Galante had made enemies in every direction. The Gambino family saw him expanding into territory he had no right to touch. The Genovese family saw a boss who refused to respect the table they all sat at. The other Bonanno captains, the men inside his own family, saw a boss who had bypassed them entirely, who had handed power to Sicilian outsiders over men who had earned their positions through decades of loyalty. That last part is what sealed it, because a boss can survive external enemies. He cannot survive his own family turning against him, and Galante's own captains had begun talking to the other families. Quietly, the way men in that world always talked when a decision was being made. The commission didn't debate it for long. Galante had made himself a threat to the structure itself, not just to one family, to the system. And when the system decides you're a threat, it doesn't warn you, it doesn't negotiate. It sends men to a restaurant on a Thursday afternoon. And Carmine Galante, the man who believed he was untouchable, never saw them coming. July 12th, 1979. Joe and Mary's Italian-American restaurant, Knickerbocker Avenue, Bushwick, Brooklyn. Galante arrived for lunch with a small group. Two of the men at that table were his own associates, Cesare Bonventre and Baldassare Amato. Sicilian Zips, the men Galante had personally imported and elevated, the men he trusted more than anyone else in the family. He sat on the back patio, ordered food, lit a cigar. The afternoon was quiet, the kind of afternoon a man has when he believes the world around him is under control. 3 gunmen came through the restaurant. They didn't hesitate. They walked onto the patio and opened fire, shotguns and handguns. Galante was hit in the chest and the face. He died in his chair. The owner of the restaurant was killed beside him. Another associate was hit. And here is the detail that tells you everything about how this was organized. Bonventre and Amato, the 2 Zips sitting at that table with Galante, were not hit. They walked away, untouched. The men Galante had trusted above everyone else in his organization were part of the setup. They had been turned before he ever sat down for lunch. His own bodyguards helped open the door. The photograph from that afternoon was on the front page of every newspaper in New York the next morning. Carmine Galante, dead in a chair, eyes still open, cigar still clenched between his teeth. The most powerful man in the Bonanno family. Left on a patio in Brooklyn, like a piece of evidence the system wanted everyone to see. And what came after that photograph is what proved this was never about one man. No war, no retaliation, no power struggle, no chaos. The Bonanno family continued. The commission continued. The other 4 families continued. Carmine Galante was removed on a Thursday afternoon, and by Friday, the system was running like he had never existed. That's the part that needs to sit with you, because when a boss is killed without approval, the streets erupt, alliances fracture, soldiers choose sides, wars start that last for years. None of that happened, because this wasn't a rogue hit. This was the structure doing exactly what it was built to do. The commission had approved the killing. His own family had cooperated. His own bodyguards had stepped aside. The men he had imported from Sicily, the men he had elevated above everyone else, had turned on him before the food arrived. Every layer of protection Galante believed he had was gone before he lit that cigar. And that is the lesson the system wanted every boss in New York to understand. You don't own the power, you hold it, temporarily, conditionally, for as long as the structure decides you're useful. The moment you treat it like it belongs to you, the moment you stop answering to the system that gave it to you, you become the problem the system was designed to solve. Carmine Galante thought he was untouchable. He thought the rules were for other men. He thought the money and the muscle and the fear he had built around himself made him bigger than the structure. It didn't. The system let him believe that for exactly as long as it needed to. Then it sent 3 men to a restaurant patio in Brooklyn and reminded everyone watching, en moi, that no one is above the structure. No one. If you found value in this breakdown, you can leave a like. Which organization should we dissect next? Drop it in the comments.